Be real, not perfect. What if everything you've been chasing is actually what's been holding you back? Think about that for a moment. The constant pressure to get everything right, to never fail, to always look strong, confident, put together. It feels like a virtue, doesn't it? Like you're doing the right thing. But what if that search for perfection is nothing more than a beautifully disguised prison? One that you've been carrying for years without even noticing the weight. Because perfection looks shiny from the outside, but inside, it slowly drains you. It forces you to hide parts of yourself just to fit into expectations that were never truly yours. So let me ask you, how much of your life have you spent trying to be who you think you're supposed to be? The truth is, perfection is like carrying a backpack full of polished stones. They look valuable, impressive even. But the longer you carry them, the heavier they become. And the worst part? None of them are necessary for the journey. While you're busy trying to appear flawless, something deeper starts to fade: your authenticity. Your voice. Your real self. You begin to dim your own light just to avoid standing out. But here's the question most people are afraid to face. At what cost? At what point does trying to be perfect become the very thing that keeps you stuck? Because growth doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from being willing to be real, to make mistakes, to fall, and still choose to keep going. Life doesn't reward those who wait until they're ready. It moves forward, with or without you. And every single day, you're given a choice: play safe or take the risk. But many people spend their entire lives watching from the sidelines. They convince themselves they're being careful, when in reality, they're just afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of not being enough. But let me ask you something honestly. What's more painful, falling while trying, or never discovering how far you could have gone? Because the fear that holds you back is the same force that could push you forward, if you allowed it. And then there's the fear of being seen. The fear of judgment. Of putting yourself out there and hearing silence, or worse, criticism. But here's something that might surprise you. Most people aren't paying as much attention as you think. And that realization, it's not discouraging. It's freeing. Because when you understand that, you stop asking for permission to be yourself. You stop waiting for validation. You stop performing. And you start living. It's like realizing the door of the cage you've been in was never locked. You just never tried to open it. So what would happen if you finally did? Many people confuse faith with waiting. They sit still, hoping things will change, hoping the perfect moment will come. But real faith isn't passive. It's movement. It's jumping even when you can't see where you'll land. It's trusting that something will catch you along the way. Because if you only act when you're certain, you'll spend your whole life standing still. And let me ask you again, what's more frightening, making a mistake, or looking back years from now wishing you had tried? You don't need to see the entire path. You just need the courage to take the next step. Here's something most people learn too late. There is no perfect timing. There is only decision. Life doesn't pause while you prepare. It unfolds while you act. And every mistake you make isn't a failure. It's a stitch. A reinforcement. A piece of the strength you're building. You don't create confidence before action. You build it through action. You don't wait to become ready. You become ready by moving. So maybe the real question isn't, what if I fail? But, what happens if I never begin? Being original in a world that constantly pushes you to conform is not easy. It's like lighting a candle in the middle of a storm. The wind will try to put it out again and again. And sometimes, it will. But every time you choose to light it again, you're making a statement. You're saying, this is who I am. And that matters. Because authenticity is powerful. It challenges expectations. It disrupts comfort zones. And that's exactly why it's needed. So instead of trying to protect yourself from the wind, what if you learned how to stand in it? Most people think they've reached their limit long before they actually have. When your body says, I can't anymore, there's often still more left inside. More strength. More resilience. More potential. And the same applies to your mind. You stop not because you're truly exhausted, but because you've been conditioned to believe that discomfort is a sign to quit. But what if discomfort is actually the doorway to transformation? What if everything you want is just beyond the moment where you usually give up? So let me ask you, how much of your life are you living at half capacity? Because doing things halfway creates a very specific kind of frustration. You invest time, energy, effort, but never reach the other side. Not because you couldn't, but because you stopped too soon. The world doesn't need more people who start. It needs people who finish. People who understand that the middle of the journey is not a place to stay, it's a place to pass through. It's where you're tested, where you grow, where you decide if you're going to turn back or move forward. Every creator, every person who has ever built something meaningful has faced the dark phase. The stage where nothing makes sense, where there's no recognition, no applause, no validation, just silence. And it's in that silence that most people quit. But it's also where the strongest are formed. Because pressure shapes you. It forces you to discover who you are without external approval. It teaches patience, discipline, persistence, and eventually, clarity. The problem is, many people run from the darkness before realizing it's where the light is being created. The sun doesn't ask for permission to rise. It simply shows up. Every single day. No matter what happened the day before. And maybe that's the mindset you need to adopt. Stop waiting for approval. Stop waiting to feel ready. Show up anyway. Because your life is not defined by how perfect you are, it's defined by how real you're willing to be. And if there's one thing to hold on to from all of this, let it be this. Doubt may feel like the wind pushing against you, but you still have wings. So take a breath. Let that sink in. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, to feel, to try, to fail, to grow, and to keep going anyway. If this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Carry it with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, all a person needs is permission to stop pretending and finally start living as who they truly are.